everyone, it's Angela Stevens with the podcast Refocus Careers, and I have got an individual that has a career that you would never, maybe you don't even know about it or know how to get into it. But today I've got Alexandra Clark, and she is the founding chocolatier for a company called Bon 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 Founder. And actually, the company is Bon Bon Bon. And she actually created this company. And we're so excited to find out about the journey that you went on. So, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. So, tell us, take us way back. Take us way back. So, you're in college or you're in school. And what did you want to be in life? Did you always know that you wanted to be a chocolatier, or did you think you were going to be an engineer or another industry? What did that look like back then?
I knew that I wanted to I think I kind of wanted to open a restaurant. I was very interested in food. And from a really young age, I was really interested in food. And I started working at an ice cream shop. And I was a really creative kid, but I had never really found like my medium. Like my sister can draw someone and it looks just like them. And I can like kind of do something, or I would
Wow.
like get really into
Wow.
painting something and then I'd get really into something else. But there was never anything where I was like, oh, that's my thing, and my parents have that thing and they're pretty creative and my sister had that thing. And I was like, just generally a creative kid, there
Yeah.
wasn't like anything to it. And then, so I went to college thinking like, oh, well, maybe I'll make ice cream. So I went to Michigan State, which has a great dairy school. And I'm studying ice cream and I got to go and study abroad. And I was living in Scandinavia and traveling all over Europe. And I got to try really, really good chocolate. So not just like the chocolate I thought was good that my grandpa used to bring to Christmas time, where I thought like you'd like sneak over the box and like pick out which one was the coconut one so that your sister didn't get it.
Right.
Uh, like that's what I thought really good chocolate was. And I mean, that's good in its own way, but I
Yeah.
had never had chocolate that was like really crafted intentionally for you to experience something that
Yeah.
was, that was art. And I was blown away. Like it was one of those moments where you're like, oh, like it's not ice cream, it's chocolate. Like I got right back in line and got another piece. It was like, this is it. This is
I love it.
it was like, this is what I want to do. And it sounds so simple. Like, oh, okay, I want to do chocolate, whatever that means, because I didn't know yet exactly what that
Yeah.
would mean.
Yeah.
But looking into it, I realized how complex the chocolate industry is.
Right.
And I mean, we're talking like child slave labor and deforestation and things that were just like not something that could ever settle well in your soul. And so I knew that it needed further exploration before I could figure out exactly how I was going to do this thing that I was generally interested in doing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So, and I was going to
yeah,
say, you go to Scandinavia, and did you meet with people that did that there as well?
I didn't really meet with anyone there. I was just eating chocolate generally.
It's the best research right there.
Yeah,
Okay. Eat chocolate and you can
not at
buy
that
yourself
point.
as a
Yeah,
chocolatier.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but in terms of, you've got this business now and she's got like 50 employees, she's got a great team. What is it that you look for in if you're interviewing somebody today, in your career? What is it that you look for that impresses you the most?
The thing that impresses me the most, well, I'm always impressed by the fact that there's people out there that can and want to do everything that you don't want to do. That is
Exactly.
amazing to me. That you can put it out in the world that I'm looking for this job and it's like this person needs to be A, B, C, and D, and they can feel totally unrelated to you.
Yeah.
Like that these skills are totally, and then you'll get somebody that you're like, I can't believe, and they're like, this is all I'm passionate about. I can't believe there's a job that finally lists out the things that I'm truly passionate about doing in life. And I mean, I'm looking at them like, how could you possibly be passionate about accounting? That's one where
All
I'm like, I
spreadsheets,
know,
really.
yeah,
Yeah.
really being a bookkeeper would not be, I mean, I love office supplies, but that would be like I could keep myself going if I had to, but it would take a bit to keep it going. And then other people are not only happy to do it, but very good at it and as passionate about that as I am about chocolate.
Yeah.
So that's constantly a thing that I'm like surprised about. But the thing that I really am looking for when I'm talking to somebody is their capacity, is their relationship with the world. that they might accept the fact that the world is an unkind place at times, or that the world might not always be a good place, and what they do in response to that.
Yeah.
That's inspiring. And that's
Yeah.
something that I found uniquely in every team member that I've been a part of hiring at Bon Bon, but I think is something really unique. I would be very comfortable saying for the entire company of Bon Bon
Yeah.
is that these people have been through some really hard things in their life,
Yeah.
and it's not stopping them. And that inspires, I mean, we know these things about each other, and yet you see them at work that day and they're being so kind to somebody else. It's resilience is always inspiring.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's not that you have to be like, there's no time frame on resilience, and there's no responsibility for people to be resilient. But when you see somebody who has been, it is, I mean, it can drop you to your knees. It's amazing. I always am like, to me, that's the most amazing thing about somebody else. And when somebody can display their capacity for that in an interview setting, or with their job, or in their life, in a way that they can apply it to work, it is always somebody that I'm like, I want to work with you. I want to go through the hardest thing that we've ever done together at work. I want to go build big things with you, because I think once you've done that, then you have a capacity to do it again. And then that's the person you want to see next to you when something goes really rough. And if we're being real, business isn't always fun or happy or
Right.
exciting.
Right.
There's
Right.
really hard times too. And you gotta, it's one thing to be able to drink a beer with somebody, and it's something else to be able to pull an all-nighter to get something done.
Right.
And it's very cool to come across people that have that capacity,
Mhm.
even if you hate the reason why they have that capacity.
So basically, you're saying too that everybody's got a role, and the role that they play is so important. So a role that you might not feel is an important, job, it's probably one of the most important jobs of that company, right? And so
Yeah.
it's so, I used to say, I have a search firm, and I used to say, today's CEO can be tomorrow's janitor, vice versa. I mean, you really have to respect what each other does and build each other up, because I think sometimes we don't do that as much. And I think that's really great about you. And that's one of the reasons I have Refocus, is because, we want to change that stigma of ADHD to show that, whether you've got ADHD or not, once you're focused, organized, and you find your calm, you can be brilliant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And somebody needs you for exactly that thing that you might be so concerned about.
exactly. So, and so I go back in terms of careers, and I think, there's got to be a lot of different jobs, right? So, do you have, I mean, you've got people in operations, you've got people in retail. Do you have scientists that work for you as well?
Not directly. So my background is actually in food science. So that's really helpful. And then of course we can always send things out to third-party providers if we need testing.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, chocolate itself, if you look at pastry rather than just direct cooking,
Yeah.
cooking is science. Like that's not, cooking is chemistry. Um,
Yes.
However, pastry is kind of next level. I would say pastry helps to bridge that gap between like what I would call just like straight science and straight culinary arts.
Yeah.
Uh, Pastry sort of leans harder towards the scientific side. And then I would say chocolate kind of goes the next level, but has like a dose of it's really science, but it feels like woo when you're in it,
Hmm.
where the chocolate is in charge. I think bread baking is kind of the same, where, yeast rules the day. And for
Yeah.
us, the temper of the chocolate rules the day. So I love an X factor like that, where you aren't actually totally in control, where your sense of control is always limited by this other thing.
Yeah.
And chocolate really, really does that. So
I love that. So, okay, so I'm going to go back even further. So, food science. All right. So, a lot of people know about food science. I know about food science because my husband actually worked in that area. So,
oh, cool.
if somebody wanted to go into that area, first of all, what drew you to that area, and what are some other things they can do with that?
Well, I was really drawn. My first job was in ice cream, and there was a dairy processing facility at Michigan State.
Okay.
So I could study dairy processing there. And studying dairy processing was not a hard sell for me, because it meant, spending labs making Dippin' Dots,
Ah,
or having cheese sensory evaluation,
yeah.
where you're literally just eating cheese, and with a Dutch heritage varietal cheese expert. It was like mind blowing. Then the connections to horticulture and agriculture, and Um, yeah, it was absolutely fascinating. And there's all different challenges in food, right?
Yes.
Not just with
Nutraceuticals.
commercially, yeah. So it's not just like a commercially viable thing. There's also, I mean, food science is something that we've been doing forever. We just
Right.
don't always know it. So the applications of it, I really like it as a career, not just as opening my own chocolate shop, but because it's one of those careers where you could enter as one thing and be working as a
Yes.
scientist for a major multinational corporation, and then end up working on this other project that then you turn into a business and you have the patent, and then you're working up for a dairy co-op and working on, you never know. So, or
Exactly.
working in like third-party consulting or in extension services. Like, I really think it's one of those careers that can lead you in a lot of different directions. It's
Yeah.
not one of the ones that sort of silos you into this thing that then goes through this hierarchy. It's a choose your own adventure sort of degree.
It's
And
amazing. It's
really,
amazing, isn't it? Because you can go into nutraceuticals, you can go into
yeah,
pharmaceuticals, you can do biotech. There's so many different areas that you can actually apply that degree. And Michigan is very, very well known for that area. So that is so impressive. So, well, look, I could talk to you all day, but I love the fact that you went into this career. You made something out of a passion that you are passionate about. That right there is the coolest thing ever. And if you haven't heard of her chocolates, you've got to go to her website, which is it's bonbonbon.com. Is that right?
yes.
Awesome. And we will put that on there as well. But last question for you. If you had a young adult sitting in front of you right now and they had no idea what they wanted to do, what advice would you give them?
I would say to go do everything. And instead of looking at something from the perspective of what happens if I fail, to look at it from the perspective of what if I'm wildly successful? What would that look like? And the crazier, quote unquote, the thing is that you have in your mind, I think thinking that through is even more important. And saying, if you're I am a strong believer in an example of, if you're really passionate about something, there's a way to make a career out of it. And it might not be the easy way, and it might not be the conventional way, and it might be emotionally hard or financially hard at times. But I also think it's extremely rewarding
Yeah,
to be able to do that. And I think my mistake was really thinking of like, oh, what if this fails? What if this fails? What if I'm doing it wrong? And it was actually the opposite. And I was very unprepared for it. And yeah, that would be exactly what I would say is like, think of that thing that you're really crazy about. What if you're really crazy about nail polish? Like, that's excellent. That's a career for ages. That's multiple companies. If you just what if you were wildly successful? What would that look like? What would you need to have in place then? Think about it in those concepts, because then all of a sudden you might think, like, if I had gone back and thought of it that way, I probably would have gotten a degree in, or at least a specialization or a second degree in finance.
exactly.
Whereas otherwise I'd be like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. But I
Yeah.
think it's just that thought of saying, like, what would I need to be wildly successful at this thing that I really want to do? At that one little tiny burning interest that you need to know the answer to,
Mhm.
what is that, and what would it look like? And if you were, if you had a company that was making $10 million a year doing that, what would you have to have in place, and what skills would you need to know? And think of it
That
that.
is, I tell you what, that is such a great answer because I'm just sitting here going, oh, wow, but I've got ADHD. So, of course, I'm going, oh, I can do this one and I can do this. I've got three businesses, so I don't need any more right now. But no, that's really so great because I think a lot of times parents or outside influences can keep us down. And
Yeah.
if they don't, like you said earlier in our other podcast, that your family was really supportive of you going into that industry, which that sometimes is half the battle. But I always say, if you're not happy in your job, change it. And if you're don't know what to do, like you said, just try something, right?
Yeah, I will say I was 26 and about to open my chocolate shop, and somebody said, Alex, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm working on opening a chocolate shop. And they said, in like a belittling way, they were like, well, good for you, and I hadn't thought of it ever that way. Like, it just was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do, and I had done a lot of different things to get there. But
Oh, yeah.
hearing from them in that way made me second guess this entire thing that I've made into a career. Like, like we are a multi-million-dollar company and I've been recognized at the James Beard Award. Like, and it really hurt to hear that then. And it absolutely could have stopped me. And it's like people will say that stuff. And like, I understand why they might not do it because of it. So, so then I think your brain does automatically go into that planning of like crisis planning, like, oh yeah, they're probably right. Like, this is probably nuts. Cause I mean, I did that. And
Right.
I had plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G for what to do if it failed. And I was completely unprepared for the success that we saw. And instead it ended up being this opposite issue. And had I prepared for that and even given that airtime in my own brain, I would have been so much better off.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you have to, if you have a company, you have to be the driver. You have to be positive and you've got to believe in your product and what you're doing, because if you don't, your team is not going to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Even if that thing you're doing is so weird, like making chocolate that's all the same shape inside. Like it's weird. That's the first time I ever walked out into public wearing our uniform at Photo One, I was like, here we go. It's
Oh,
going to be uncomfortable. It
yeah.
just is. No matter what you do, living is uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Okay, so you were on our Focus podcast, but I've got to ask you this question too. So, what is your favorite chocolate? And the way she describes it, I just want you to be prepared. It is so awesome. So, tell us your favorite and why. And I love this answer.
So I recently had to kind of change what my favorite is. So the one it used to be like my favorite was one, and the one I ate the most often was one, but now it's kind of flopped. And so my favorite is mustachio, and it's a Moscato wine caramel and pistachio ginger. So you have this like sweet acidity that's just like really light acidity, like a perfect peach kind of in the caramel. And then the pistachio ginger is like a super, super smooth combination of chocolate and pistachio butter. And so that one's like lightly salty, and then it's in a dark chocolate shell, which provides a little bit of astringency. And there's something about the way that it all comes together where it feels like this classic flavor that's always been around, where you're like, oh yeah, like I feel like I've had this before, except for it's not. It's like a bon invention. It's just been sort of refined by our team over time to become like that. And I love the thing that makes you second guess this new thing. Is this new or is this old? What is this?
I love this. That is so awesome. Well, like I said, if you haven't tried it, go to our website, order something, try it. You will, I'm sure it is amazing. I'm going to be your first customer after this. So, anyway, but thank you so much for joining us today. And like I said, if you're ever interested in being a chocolatier or something like that, talk to people, Google it, do your research, find out about it. And if you're in food science, check it out because you never know where you might end up. So thank you again.
Thank you. And thanks for having this podcast, because I think the most interesting jobs and most interesting people I've come across, I want to ask these same questions to. So I love what you're doing. And I think it's not only really important, but it's got to be so rewarding to get to talk to people and find out
Every
how
day.
they.
Love it.
Thank
Love
you.
it. Thanks so much.